First of all, I greet the Turkish world. I would like to talk about a 3-day operation. It's about the liquidation of the international terrorist Monte Melkonyan, who was called Evo. I am often asked to personally discuss the details of this unique operation. It happened on June 11, 1993. The Armenians attacked the direction of Aghabedi. It was morning. Explosions were heard during the morning exercise. I ordered the patrolman to contact the headquarters and report the situation. Ferzi, that was the name of the radio operator from Larik region, announced that I had to go to the headquarters at once. When arriving at the headquarters, chaos was undergoing. We can confidently talk about a strong state and a professional army only now. And again, Azerbaijan is a winning country. Unfortunately, chaos and the panic between the civilians and the army were common in those days. The battalion commander explained the situation as follows. Armenians made a tank raid in the direction of Aghabedi. This could be called reconnaissance battle. There were casualties among the civilians and the military personnel. In complete confusion, abandoned territories and the battle positions could have fallen under enemy control. The goal of the Armenian command was clear, to capture the front areas and reach the river Kur. They were close to that plan, because the lack of centralized power and a strong army helped their plan. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough military units for defense at the time, so it was planned the liquidation of the command of Armenian military units that was located in Martini Kojavant to prevent a large-scale attack of the enemy. This was the only way out of the difficult situation. This operation was entrusted to me. I returned to the place where the reconnaissance sabotage platoon was. It needed 12 soldiers to carry out this operation. I chose only the volunteers. I explained the situation. I didn't hide the fact that might be no chance of turning back. After a short instruction, I sent my warriors to have a rest because we would have to move at midnight. A month before those events, representatives of special services informed me that a certain field commander named Evo had returned from Armenia to our region. He was said to be cruel. We managed to collect some information about him within a month. While we were behind the enemy line for days, we observed the movement trajectory, crossing the front line, collecting intelligence information, mining the roads leading to Armenian posts, ambushing the enemy's manpower and equipment are the jobs of scouts. No enemy vehicles could move freely in the area they controlled because they would be easy cripples for my warriors. I used to refrain from talking about the activities of the intelligence sabotage group that I commanded, but it seems now that in time I will have to inform the audience. We started the operation at 7 o'clock in the evening. The road was long. We had to walk about 15-20 kilometers under the cover of night. I will not go into detail about the difficulties we faced. We approached the Armenian positions at night. The Kanashan River flowed very close to the enemy posts. It was a small narrow mountain river with its source in Karabakh mountains. It was very wasted because the Armenians released sewage and all kinds of throwing from the Khojavant region into the river. I knew surely that everywhere was mined on both sides of the river, so it was impossible to cross the river. Therefore, I had to cross the river against the current. The most dangerous thing was to pass through the Armenian positions. According to my assessments, the river could have been mined there. Intuition didn't disappoint me. As usual, I was forward of the team. There was a distance between us. This was to reduce the casualties in the event of an anti-personnel mine explosion. It was extremely difficult to cross a mined area in complete silence, a few meters away from an enemy trench in the dead of the night. Nevertheless, we managed to cross the contact line without a trace and stood behind the enemy line. My warriors visually captured all ways in which the enemy's equipment could move. Before that, we identified the service car coming. It was UAZ. The UAZ began to appear from the slopes of the mountains to the pass. I saw camouflaged command posts, the large manpower and equipment of the enemy. I marked this place on my map. Evo stayed there for about an hour. Then he went in the UAZ to the direction of his troops. At that time, battles were going on in different parts of the front. We could see artillery shells exploding in the observation posts. It was clear from here that everything was serious and heavy. UAZ headed towards the position. He leaned a little towards the trench. Evo was known to give some orders. The car left its position and moved towards our hiding place. UAZ stopped in the river. I looked at the car with binoculars. The distance between us was about 500 meters. A man got out of the UAZ. It was Evo, who was followed by two warriors. He stopped, pointed to the car, and ordered the warriors. He returned. Evo went on foot. The weather was hot. I was watching him. He was coming towards us. I also had a silencer. It was possible to shoot without noise, but I chose to kill him face to face, one on one. I knew this area as well. This was my village that was occupied by Armenians a year ago and turned into ruins. I got up and went towards to meet him. One of my soldiers followed me. Although I didn't want to take him with me, there were remnants of the walls of the houses everywhere. I met Evo face to face at the corner of the school. My gun was ready to shoot. He turned the barrel of the gun towards me, but the gun was locked. I shouted to him in Russian, "Drop your gun." It seemed that he didn't take me serious because it was not realistic for Azerbaijan scouts to walk freely behind the enemy in the territory controlled by Armenians during those days. He knew that he had an enemy in front of him. He muttered something on his lips and began to approach me. It was as if a snake was crawling towards me. I saw him pointing his gun at me, trying to open the safety of the machine gun with his thumb. I shot him in the stomach. He turned his face and took out his machine gun, but he didn't have time to fire. I hit him from the side. The gun fell to the side of Evo, fell on his face. He quickly got up and aimed to automatic gun. But I saw and stepped in front of him and kicked him in the face. He fell to the ground again. I grabbed his throat and began to choke. He asked me for mercy in Turkish. It was Evo's last chance to survive. That's why he promised me mountains of gold. Of course, there was no mercy. I perished him. After searching for the corpse, I took paper, a pen, and a pistol from him, threw the corpse into the currant bushes at the corner of the school, and then returned to my warriors, who were guarding in the bush. It was 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. A few hours passed, as if there was a sudden earthquake around 5 or 6 o'clock. Enemy equipment began to gather around us. After they surrounded us, they started to open mixed fire. Leaning on the walls, I approached the door and looked around, trying to determine their location. There was a little distance between us. They were 20, 30 meters apart. All of them were warriors in their 30s and 40s, with long beards. We were young. I was the oldest. I was 22 years old. The rest were younger. They were 19, 20 years old. I understood very well what would happen to us if we were in their hands. I wanted to return to my warriors. It was possible to pass under the triangular layer. I hastily went under the iron and fell into the hole, which was about 10-12 meters deep. Miraculously, I grabbed the grass not to fall into the well, and if I fell, no one would know where I were. Potable water was flowing from the bottom of the well. We wanted to drink water, but we didn't know where the well was. It was unbearably hot. We had a shortage of water. It was impossible to survive there, but thankfully we escaped from this difficult situation. The Armenians surrounded us. I decided to go to the enemy's side instead of our positions. They were looking for us by the river. They closed all the exits since we were in an environment where we always tried to remain unnoticed. We reached the place called Tovnik. One of the enemy tanks was coming towards us. I deployed the anti-tank propelled grenade RPG-7 and ordered the warriors to retreat. I began to wait for the tank to approach. I told the soldier to prepare to fire. Before reaching 30-40 meters, the tank unexpectedly returned. I was very happy. I could have shot the tank, but they would immediately determine our place. It was already dark. We could escape from there only in the dark. We arrived at the Armenians' positions. We named this area the Messenger Stone. We stopped 50 meters from Armenians. We saw the camouflage tank of the enemy. It was the most incredible place where we were hiding. I told the warriors to have a rest here. Armenians shouted Evo until morning. Then we were sure that we perished Evo. The Armenians continued their search from Khojavend with soldiers and vehicles until the morning. They stopped the search around 4 in the morning. I woke up my tired warriors, lined up the reserves one by one. We went to the village of Merzili of Akhtam region. We crossed the enemy positions and reached our artillery positions with incredible difficulty. The commander of the artillery division was a person named Bayram. The first task here was to quench the unbearable thirst of the warriors. We all returned safely. Most importantly, we overcame the fear of the enemy that both civilians and soldiers had experienced so far. The next day, our commander invited prominent people of the villages, of frontier regions, and convinced them not to be afraid of the enemy diversions. And he demonstrated the physical evidence. This served to raise the fighting spirit between the military and the civilian population. As a result of the reconnaissance operation, a large-scale attack of the enemy towards this district was stopped forever. After a few days, I returned to the military unit with my team. The place whose coordinates I had noted on the map, I transferred it to our artillery. They made a devastating artillery attack on the place where the enemy forces were gathered. We saw how the enemy positions were destroyed by point strikes and what happened there. The desire and the belief of the Armenians to occupy the lands of the Chur River remained a dream. This operation of a reconnaissance platoon consisting of 12 warriors caused it. Many people wanted to hear it from me personally, so I decided to tell you everything. Thanks for your attention.